Welcome to the Football Guys Dynasty Show. It's me again for your third show this week, or if it's on the audio side, it'll be the first show of the week because putting out audio on Friday is just a no-no. A little SEO fun fact, and today we're going to talk about what we learned week one. It is me, Jagger, and then with me as always is our Dynasty captain, Jeff Bell. We learned a lot of things. We were wrong about a couple of things. We were right about a lot more, actually. I'm not going to sit here in victory lap, but we got a couple of things right, Jeff. It feels good, and it eliminates everything that we said about Isaiah Pacheco. So, it's like, so we'll jump into it.
For everybody but Chiefs fans, they will never
Forever,
forgive us. Blood vendetta is on.
I can never post about the Chiefs on TikTok again. We're donezo. It's Jover. Saquon Barkley, is he this season's RB1, Jeff? He had 24 carries for 109 yards and 2 TDs. A huge game. And I forgot the receiving on there. He had 2 receptions, 23 yards on a TD on a nice little mesh concept. They got him out on a little halfback wheel. I mean, is he this like the new CMC? You know?
Well, I still believe that CMC is the CMC, but he's obviously out week one. There's rumors he might be out week two, and so you start missing some games that will knock you down a little peg. But we saw Bijan Robinson get a CMC like role in week one, so that was exciting. And Brees Hall obviously does Brees Hall things. I think it's really interesting that in a lot of like the push pull and the way that fantasy headed was kind of throwing dirt on a lot of these elite running backs this year. And I've said it all off season that especially in these redraft leagues, these best ball tournaments, that if elite running backs hit at the way that they're valued, then people are going to have a problem because of the values that you were able to create and build robust running back type builds. And obviously week one with Saquon Barkley, we saw that be the case. And even looking across the league, the way that we were trending towards having multiple committee backfields, that really narrowed down this week for week one. And a lot more teams were focused on just having one guy kind of be that guy.
Yeah, it was kind of like it was pretty jarring seeing the things that we even projected. Like where I was wrong on was running back volume. Like a lot of the other stuff like receivers and QBs, like that was fine on. But like a lot of this, like again, guys, like coach speak, like it happens to all of us when you think that you're hearing something reliable. And even it goes to as far as where they're telling their own beat reporters this type thing. And then we get week one, Kyren Williams 91%. And I will say to the person we're talking about, Saquon, I was with you that I thought that he, even in Dynasty, he was an absolute value for contenders. I was still a little too cheap to get any deals done, but like to me, he was the ultimate target. Even in redraft, that's why I started pulling the trigger a lot because I'm like, cool, I can get like literally in redraft, it was very easy at Superflex for you to get elite quarterback, elite wide receiver, elite tight end, Saquon Barkley, then you can go get your next QB or wide receiver. Like that was honestly looking back, that was kind of the move. Could have been the move in startups for you to have a competitive roster that still had some youth and someone like Barkley that is going to have a good 2 years of elite production out of it. One thing that was concerning looking at this backfield, and I don't say concern because I didn't have hope. Like he's someone that's still on my taxi squad, and then I only had him in best ball if I had Eagles, so building a stack. But it's Will Shipley wasn't really used at all. Kenny Gainwell still kind of the guy there. So I'm even if they love Shipley, at least right now I think like Gainwell might be the handcuff there. But regardless, 24 carries, like he was on every snap. Philadelphia knew what they were paying for, and they're not like this isn't the Giants organization. They're going to get him the ball, and he's behind the best offensive line in the NFL. That includes even after losing Kelsey. There was some weird stuff there with Cam Jurgens with some snaps, but as far as the rest of that line, Jordan Mailata, Mekhi Becton, that's a strong offensive line. And congrats if you bought him. Congrats if you had him. I'm sorry if you're going against them right now. So.
Yeah, and he kind of solved the concerns about the tush push because he just didn't get tackled at the 1 yard line like DeAndre Hopkins. He's actually just scored, so
And
that kind of answers that concern. So
and me and you, we've said that on here. Like I remember Ryan Heath's episode. I think we talked about that. We
yeah,
broke this down. I was just like, Ryan Heath was just like, well, they're old. I'm like, they're old, but like, what if they were just on terrible teams? Like, you
yes,
look back on the Giants and Raiders, and then you look at that in the same game, Josh Jacobs, at Saquon Barkley, and you got to think that maybe I galaxy brain this too much. And it comes to the point that like Joe Mixon was still inefficient, but do you know what doesn't go against fantasy points is inefficiency. Like you don't there isn't like a points for per efficiency league yet anyway. So we kind of just overthink these things, man. You want good running backs and good offenses
yeah.
since the beginning of time. That's like been the path forward, you know. As always, before we go forward, I got to pay some bills. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Do everything that anyone on YouTube has ever told you to do ever. And we have our weekly trade episodes. If you guys have comments, concerns, if you wonder why we wear the same outfit every day for the 1 week on showing you guys can ask us that. If you want to get trade advice, I'm in there in the comments. If you want an audio version, we do have that over on Spotify and Apple. You can leave us reviews there. You can give us trade questions there. I try to check those as much as I can. And then we're deep into content mode. We're putting out a lot of articles a week. I can't count. I put out like 3 a week. Jeff, you put out multiple a week. And that's just us two. We have every tool that you want over on footballguys.com/plans. And we just released our GOAT tier where we're giving you things like a concierge service. We have our Discord. We are doing everything that we can to help you. So go over there to footballguys.com/plans today. Next, the Packers. I'm not, again, we're not like victory lapping or anything over here. But I'd say we were right and wrong about the Packers. Jayden Reed is the Packers wide receiver one, guys. But the Packers are going to have an effective offense as long as Jordan Love's there. He's going to be out 3 to 6 weeks, which sucks. Uh, I am concerned for 3 to 6 weeks. Malik Willis, it's hard for me to scratch my head or to wrap my head around Malik Willis being a better quarterback than Michael Pratt. I don't know if you saw that. I don't it doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm not there. I don't know. But Malik Willis is the guy. I'm concerned about the volume there, but long term, this is Dynasty. I would say week 6, we should see business as usual. Jayden Reed had 4 receptions for 138 yards and a touchdown, 1 carry for 33 yards and a TD. I heard someone say that that Jayden Reed is the Xavier Worthy of Debo's, and I agree with that. Where Debo is like this grab and smash type guy, Jayden Reed had some jets. He looked fast. Jeff, you had an interesting comment where you said, "Is he just the Packers' Antonio Brown?" And when you think about that role, that's kind of where he is, where they move him around. He's constantly moving across the formation. And if you look at Antonio Brown's early career, that was a guy that they were just trying to get the ball in his hands any way possible, punt returns, whatever. Yeah, so like he's a guy you want. And I said this on a different show. When I was telling you guys to trade him, I wasn't saying to trade him because he sucks. I was just saying that there's good value to have him right now. At this point, you're probably just going to keep him because now even with Malik Willis in there, I think he's the guy that you can manufacture touches for, and he has the most value there. Break this down even further, Jeff. We're going to go down target and snap share lane, and we're going to talk about the Packers snap and target share. Basically, you want everyone on this offense besides Dontavian Wicks and Luke Musgrave.
Yeah.
Jayden Reed had 72% snap share and 6 targets. Guess what? He was not in on wide receiver two sets. Guess what, guys? That also doesn't matter because the Packers run 11 personnel. They don't run a lot of 12 personnel, which brings me to my next point. Luke Musgrave. It's over, guys. It's done. We're donezo. Tucker Kraft had a 96% snap share. Luke Musgrave had a 25%. When you run no 12 personnel and then someone is getting a significant portion ahead of you, it's done. So that should make you feel good about everyone by Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and Christian Watson. With all that in my rambling, Jeff, Do you agree that you just all these guys are fine at cost besides the two I listed?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, and I think especially if you're going to go out and target craft, because I mean, those of us in circles like see the snap share, and those are the types of things we look for. If you're in a league that maybe just kind of looks at the points total, that might be an opportunity because he did have a 96% snap share. And I think when you really break it down, I mean, Romeo Dubs, Christian Watson, and Tucker Kraft are basically every down players. And then Jayden Reed occasionally will trade off with Luke Musgrave and when they want to play with two tight end sets. And that's kind of it very cleanly. That's what it looks like with Dontavian Wicks kind of being the backup for Dubs or for Christian Watson. And that's
Yeah.
kind of just how it plays out. And I think that Dubs, plays the most snaps out of any of these receivers, had the most targets, but he probably realistically has the lowest ceiling relative to Jayden Reed and Christian Watson on a week to week basis. It's just kind of a consistent floor production that he'll be able to give you. But Kraft to me is the interesting one because he profiles more as an inline tight end, and I think he's more at the high end, more explosive than Luke Musgrave. Luke Musgrave kind of profiles more as like a classic move tight end who's not going to be that inline guy. And you look back at last year, yeah, Musgrave was able to pull ahead early because everybody around the team said that Kraft kind of struggled early, and then Musgrave got hurt, and Kraft got his feet underneath him and really took off at that point. Then Kraft was hurt again in camp this year, and I think that maybe allowed a little bit for Musgrave, but we see now that Kraft is the full-time player here, and he is the piece that you want.
Yeah. And another thing that I think Anthony Richardson, he just has so much talent that like some of these guys, if you have like so much natural talent, you might be outliers. But some of these guys that just can't stay healthy or haven't had a lot of playing time, I think that we need to temper our expectations for because Luke Musgrave was a really athletic tight end who had some pretty eye-popping athleticism on tape, but he barely played in college. And I really liked him. I think he was like my tight end five at the time, but now he still can't get on the field. And it's like, and again, I'm not. It's literally my job to hype up our website, but like I'm not. I really do mean this. Adam Hutchinson is one of the best injury analysis in the game, and he really quantifies, injury prone. Like, and when they come back, and like just knowing what his process is, Luke Musgrave is kind of unrosterable if you really think about it because he hasn't been able to stay on the field since college. It's really done, guys. I didn't go out and try to get him. Tucker Kraft, now's the time to go and get him. You look at target share, you look at a good offense, and or excuse me, you look at snap share, you look at a good offense. You know what that offense is, and you know that he didn't do anything. This is your week to go get Tucker Kraft because like, and let's put it this way, you may have a 3 to 6 week window depending on Jordan Love. But this is a piece of an offense that you want. Dontavian Wicks, I said on a different show that I bought him as a third rounder because I thought he could be worth a second, maybe a little bit more if he really imploded. He's still worth a third rounder. He's like Josh Palmer last year, where, he's a handcuff. Like, let's put it this way. If I have Dontavian Wicks, I'm probably going to try to sell him cheap to the Dubs or Watson owner for some other depth or something like that at this point. Um, Christian Watson, I should have been more bullish on. This guy seems to be like the red zone threat, Jeff. So,
Yeah. Yeah, he did see multiple targets within the red zone, was able to convert one of those. I think you're exactly right there.
yeah. And like Dubs, now that we were kind of talked about him and I conceptualize him, I think he's like a poor man's Michael Pittman, where I think he's going to see 7 to 8 targets a game, but outside of PPR, you may not love it as much because the plays won't be there. And in the red zone, he did run a lot of fades, so it just depends on if he has a good matchup on that point. So like I think Dubs is going to have I still think Dubs is a buy. With that being said, I don't know if you
Yeah.
agree with that. Hmm.
Yeah, I think that I agree. And
Hmm.
there are a lot of people that will look at the underlying metrics and kind of write him off because he does, quote unquote, doesn't earn targets relative to when he's on the field. But yeah, it's just kind of going to be one of those guys that is a consistent wide receiver 36 ish. He's kind of that wide receiver 3-4. And when you're playing in these leagues that start 10 to 11 players a week, I mean, that has value. It's a guy that can score a touchdown any week for you.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I've been, because when I got Reed, I drafted Reed in the third round in a lot of places. Second, if I would draft him in the second during that time because I was pretty high on him. But like Reed was like my third wide receiver, wide receiver two, if there's an injury. But a lot of times in my flex, depending on how these deep rosters are, and that's kind of where Dubs is. It's like I'm not saying to buy him. Like a lot of analysts will tell you, it's like you don't want to go buy players that aren't going to win you weeks. It is impossible for you to have every top 10 player. That's not how, like, you need to pull out a full roster, and Romeo Dubs is someone that you could feel safe putting into your flex or wide receiver three, depending how deep your league is,
Yeah.
and you're not going to get burned. Enough Packers talk. Broke them down. That was a interesting look at snap share from that perspective. Because, like I said, a lot of people think Dubs sucks, but if you look at the targets, he's good. Kyren Williams, that was a big L for me. He's the RB1, and he had a 91% snap share. What was crazy for me is not that he was going to lead it. Blake Corum didn't get in the game. Ronnie Rivers had a 9%. Um, and I guess this comes to be Ronnie Rivers has been in the system for what four seasons now, 3 seasons, like a significant amount of time.
Yeah, the coaching staff really likes him a lot. He had a strong summer, and they said several times that they're comfortable with all three backs as kind of being a 3-down back. And we've talked about it before in this show, how Sean McVay wants to play a back for one series, not rotate them out off plays, allow them to go in and play. And they're comfortable with all three backs. And they said that multiple times. I mean, Ronnie Rivers, we just kind of laugh it off and don't even think about it relative to the excitement around Blake Corum and the production from Kyren Williams last year. But Sean McVay did say that the usage for Kyren Williams got a little out of hand for them, and I think they were just kind of worried about in comeback mode in a very competitive game and weren't really monitoring that. But I mean, that's in play, and yeah, I mean, if Kyren Williams is going to be flirting with 90% snap share, then he's going to be flirting with the running back 2 status that he had last year.
Do you think Blake Corum gets worked in, or do we have another Tank Bigsby situation? Which on the flip
No,
side,
yeah, it's not Tank Bigsby at all. He'll be worked in. It's just I think there was one series where they were more comfortable with Rivers going in at that point of the game. I think it's important to remember that while we do a dynasty show here, most coaches want to be pretty conservative, especially week one with rookies, and want to make sure that they're kind of use them in situations that they're going to feel good about using them in. And yeah, they're going to defer to some of these boring veterans early in the season, but then we always see it. Even these guys that you're ready to write off when week 6, 7, 8, 9 starts to get rolling, and the rookie has their feet under them, they really kind of take off in some of those stretches.
Yep, exactly. So like, I'm not panic mode with Blake Corum because like Tank Bigsby, he kind of fumbled at the gate, and I mean that literally. He coughed up the ball a couple of times, and those old school coaches, especially someone like Peterson, who really just doesn't care. They'll put him in dog houses, and I don't think this is the case with Corum, so I think that might still go down. But it's like I never knew the new kickoff thing was like weird, like punt return. Like for me, I think it was a little bit alarming. When like when you have such an injury prone position like running back, it's rare that you see them put a running back there. But like to give I guess myself a little grace here is just like Sean McVay just runs stuff like his own way there. And Kyren Williams is for real. I got to get past it. They really like him a lot. And if you got to buy the discount on him, good for you. I did not. I lost
Well,
that one.
I think it's so he was the punt returner at Notre Dame when he was basically their entire offense when he was the feature back there his final year at Notre Dame, and he was the punt returner at the beginning of last year when he stepped into that offense, took over Cam Akers' role, and saw a lot of volume. I mean, it's something that he enjoys doing, and realistically, I think people struggle with context because you don't really ever think about a punt return, but it's like you get like 1 or 2 returnable punts per game. Most of the time, you're either the ball's landing far away from you and you're hoping it rolls through the end zone, or it's going to be a fair catch situation. The amount of kicks that actually get returned, especially punts, not that high.
Yep. Um, and actually, our colleague Dave just posted about what you said about Kyren, and not how they anticipated the rotation going. So it's something interesting to monitor. Next, we're gonna move over to Atlanta, guys. Here's where I would insert the gift. Not great, Bob. Um, Kirk Cousins might be cooked, man. And Michael Penix, I'm after we get off here, like by my nighttime, I'm done doing other people's football stuff and I'm doing my football stuff where I'm sitting out trades. Michael Penix is going to be my guy. I should have been more aggressive. That's another one where I wish I would have had more on. I uh, Kyle Kyle Pitts had something. He had 3 catches, 26 yards at a TD. Drake London had 2 catches, 15 yards. Again, and I'm not trying to make the same excuse because I know some of these guys that are analytics only are going to say it's like, well, what excuse are you going to make for him this time? Kirk Cousins played primarily out of the pistol. They ran nothing out of the shotgun. They didn't run play action. If you know anything about quarterback play, that means that your quarterback can't move because that requires multiple steps. Pistol, all you're like you don't need to do anything. Kirk Cousins is like was he 36 coming off an Achilles tear and was never really that mobile to begin with. I think we might see Michael Penix earlier than we thought. What about you, Jeff?
Man, yeah, maybe. I covered the Falcons and I was shocked. I was really shocked by this outcome because there wasn't any indication in camp. Actually, there were stories about basically Kirk Cousins was scrambling in camp and the coaches
Yep.
were like, "Stop scrambling! Like, what are you doing?" And
Mm.
so to see him come out there week one, and I know Pittsburgh, especially with TJ Watt and the other pieces there, they can put the pass rush on you a little bit, but just to look completely immobile, to look like deer in headlights. I mean, making plays that Kirk Cousins never would have made last year or previous years, and throwing balls up in the middle of the field, those types of things, and he couldn't move at all, and it was. I don't know how you can have an offense that your quarterback just can't move, especially when you get in that type of situation, can't escape anything. I mean, I was floored. Like that, I don't think there was a single performance that surprised me more yesterday than the Falcons going out and losing the way that they lost.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I will say they played the Steelers at full health, and the Steelers at full health has a lot of dudes back there. But still, it's like you said, it wasn't just that T.J. Watt was T.J. Watt, and they have Mika and
Yeah,
all the names. It was like this guy can't move. And again, guys, when we mean can't move, we're not talking about Anthony Richardson. We're not talking about Justin Herbert being able to escape the pocket. I'm talking about basic quarterback 5-step drop back. I
yeah.
didn't see one 5-step drop back out of Kirk Cousins. I didn't see like the stereotypical like play action boot, and you just can't be successful in the NFL. They're finding offensive tackles for giving themselves that half step to hinge and seal off the wall. That that means there's going to be even like quicker pressure. That's incredibly concerning. And Kirk Cousins is someone that I didn't want and I stayed off of because I just don't do that. I just don't do that in Dynasty, and that's one landmine I've really avoided. Because like for every Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, you're gonna have Kirk Cousins, and if you really think about Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, what's a massive difference between them and Kirk Cousins? And it's elite. Kirk Cousins has never been elite. He's been good and productive, and
Yeah.
I I don't know. I'm not trying to be all vibes, but like maybe Kirk Cousins isn't built different, because like full disclosure, me and Jeff record everything on Monday. I've got Monday Night Football on in the background. Aaron Rodgers is moving around, doing other stuff. Kirk Cousins is not. So I don't know, man. It's tough to see. I'm still I'm gonna sound stupid, Jeff. I would still buy Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. I would buy them all day. And, I think people are having big reactions to Drake London because they were expecting something different. And frankly, I
We
was
were.
too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's there. Like it's going to be there. But I do wonder because you have Michael Penix sitting there, if Kirk Cousins doesn't look better fast, and it's almost tongue in cheek, but part of me thinks like if you're the Falcons, be on the phone with the Giants. And I mean, there might be some maneuvering that needs to be done with contracts, but if I can get a second round pick for Kirk Cousins and I can just plug Michael Penix in there right now, I mean, I would probably do that.
Yep. Yeah, the Giants really need it, and that's they're since we record three shows in one night, guys, it's just hard to get everything in there. Because like I'd really like to talk about Malik Neighbors on there and what he is, because I think there's a world where we might see Rome Odunze and Brian Thomas jump him because of early season value. And I'm not saying to rank him. That's not what I'm saying to do. I'm just saying I understand how reactions work, and I think that the Giants suck, and everyone's like, "Well, get Drew Lock in there." Like we have a really like bad habit of saying like he can't be that much worse, and like he probably is. We look at Jameis Winston, who's like they're trying to trade. He might just suck, man. Like if he can't get on the field, like this. Let's put this way: he probably sucks. Like we got to give NFL coaches some credit at some point on there, and especially at QB where you're so desperate to have this elite production that if he was good, he would probably be out there at this point.
Well, and I think a lot of it comes from like you play Madden and you see Daniel Jones is like a 71 and you see Drew Lock is a 67 and you're like, well, I mean, it's not that big of a difference. Like make that move. But then it's a massive difference when it comes to understanding a playbook and knowing like what you're actually supposed to be doing on the field. And yeah, I think that there's a reason why coaches are very quick to say it's not going to be Drew Lock.
Yeah. And Daniel Jones, he's broken, man. Like I sent in the group chat, they were booing him out of that building, man. New York media is notoriously brutal, and it's a lot of the reason why a lot of stars. This isn't a New York Giants problem. It is a New York sports problem. It's really difficult to survive mentally there, and I think it's going to be pretty. You got Malik Neighbors already saying nothing and everything in interviews, when they ask who's like, when you hear wide receiver saying, I did my job, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing. So like be on the lookout on that. That's a little extra blurb I went off the track there, guys, but I just really wanted to force in Malik Neighbors' concern there. And I think that I like your point on Kirk Cousins that I think that Daniel Jones is bad enough and Kirk Cousins is bad enough, but better than Daniel Jones enough that could be good for both teams. I don't know if that made sense, but
Yeah.
like it's concerning. Speaking of bad QB play, we kind of already talked about this, but break it down. Is Bryce Young a bust? I will say, I looked at the QB charts. It looks better when you look at it that way. That isn't the reason why you just look at charts. Like me, we kind of talked about this a little bit in one of our early episodes this week about Bryce Young. But 161 yards, two interceptions, 4 carries for 12 yards at a TD. That ain't going to cut it, guys. And we kind of talked about the physical limitations that Bryce Young has, and it seems to be apparent. Jeff, you want to piggyback kind of your points and elaborate on them that you had earlier about Bryce Young just
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
small boy?
The biggest thing is, what's the difference making trade about Bryce Young? And I don't know that he's somewhat athletic, but he's definitely not athletic when you compare him across the spectrum to some high end quarterbacks. He definitely doesn't have a high end arm. It's just kind of like, what is the thing that differentiates him? And I think one of the biggest things that seeing Dave Canales come in there, and I think it's, yeah, the owner, David Tepper, Bryce Young might have been his guy, but Dave Canales is a new coach. Like Dave Canales, Bryce Young wasn't necessarily his guy. And so that's where I think you start to run into a situation where maybe last year when it was falling apart, they should have benched him, but Dave Canales might actually bench him and play Andy Dalton just to kind of get some sort of success or something going on in this offense. Because the other factor too is, who are the difference makers when you look around? I mean, yeah, it's supposed to be Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's good. I don't know, hypothetically, if you're building a high-end NFL roster, I would think Deontay Johnson's more your wide receiver 2 than your wide receiver 1 when you're kind of looking at some of the guys across the league. And then Xavier Legette was decent. Adam Thielen is Adam Thielen, but old. And Jonathan Mingo had some positive buzz, but I just don't know, like, what is the thing that makes you say the Panthers' better days are ahead than losing 47-10?
There's a lot to go there, and it's like but to be honest, I knew this could happen with Bryce Young, but you gamble on these players because like here's what I want to tell you guys is that like you should have still if you bought Bryce Young, you should still feel good about that. And this is why I say it's process over results. When you have these QBs who are drafted at the top of their class, they're going to hold value and they're going to continue to get chances. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. That doesn't mean you should never buy a QB like this again. And I'm not saying that it's one game because there's a lot of factors there. Because like you said, there's no difference maker. I think Deontay Johnson is a wide receiver one that needs a big target to be a wide receiver one. Does that make sense? I know that's crazy. And this is why I talk about like the difference between an Amon-Ra St. Brown and a Jamar Chase. Where you have this unworldly athleticism that just makes you a difference maker. Deontay Johnson doesn't have that. I've never liked Xavier Legette as that much. I think he could have developed, but for what they wanted, I don't like. To me, Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette would live in the same area of the field for what they're able to do. But the biggest issue is offensive line. Like it's still bad. Like it's hard to do anything when you just don't have a lot of a good offensive line play. It's even worse when you have a quarterback who has a problem literally seeing the field because of his size. And even me now, I'm not going to downplay size like that as much anymore. I can't assume that everyone's going to be Russell Wilson because say what you want about Russell Wilson now, he was an elite quarterback for a long time in this league and deserves his credit for what he was. And I'm just not going to assume that anymore. And like now I'm going to ask myself, like Jeff, would you really describe what Bryce Young is? Do you like Jared Goff in Kyler Murray's body with Bryce Young's normal athleticism, if that makes sense? Because like essentially that's what he is. Like
Yeah,
he's Jared Goff with Kyler Murray's body and none of Kyler Murray's athleticism. Like he
yeah,
can scoot
basically.
around a little bit, but his arm isn't great. And he's smart enough to learn the offense and make throws in anticipation. I'm not disrespecting Jared Goff. Jared Goff's 6'3" is what I'm saying. Is like Jared Goff could see the field. He's got a bigger arm because he's a bigger person. It's just I actually saw. I think Jared Goff's arm is improved on deep balls down the field. If you look at what he did with JMO, it's just a huge difference, and it's concerning. Are you concerned about Jonathan Brooks when he comes back now?
I've always been concerned about Jonathan Brooks just because I don't think he's going to get the elite bell cow volume that people think that he is. And when you kind of are betting into that, missing 4 games on the start, and if you are step into a terrible offense and you might be splitting reps, I mean, I moved to the point when it was became clear that he wasn't going to be ready to start the season. That's when I stopped drafting him at the range that he was kind of going off in redraft leagues. Still have him in Dynasty and still think that there's a path there long term in Dynasty. But this year, I just don't think he's going to be the difference maker that some people have. And it's our good friend Dave Kluge and I we agree on a lot of things, but I think Jonathan Brooks has been one of the bigger things we've disagreed on.
I've been up on Jonathan Brooks as well too because like I think that he's going to eat a lot of passes, or at least I did, because I gave him behind a bad offensive line because we saw that with the Buccaneers. I still have hope for that. I just think that, like right now, Jonathan Brooks, we're hoping that he's like Rashad White, essentially, where like it's going to be hard for anybody to have efficient rushing numbers in this offense, and you're going to hope that there's passing, but that passing is coming from Bryce Young. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, just keep that in mind. And that's where we're going to end this episode, guys. That's the couple of things that we've learned from week one. We'll come back week 2 for something else. We'll break down some of these other guys. I think we'll probably dive into the rookies next week because we'll have 2 games of sample size. We'll give some report cards. As always, guys, we're gonna have our trade show and our dynasty risers and fallers. Like and subscribe if you're over on our audio versions. Leave us 5 stars. Have any trade questions or anything in those? Put those in the comments. As always, I'm Jagger Main. That's Jeff Bell. We'll see you guys next time.